Have you ever watched someone you really love go through just an absolute crisis and you felt entirely, overwhelmingly powerless to help them?
Oh, yeah. That's such a universal and painful feeling.
It really is. I mean, picture it. Maybe it's a child who's just walking away from everything they were taught, or, a close friend who is trapped in this deeply strained, toxic marriage.
Right, or someone battling a sudden illness or addiction or really suffocating depression.
Exactly. And you're just standing on the sidelines watching this happen to them. And that feeling of helplessness is, well, it's agonizing. You want to reach in and fix it, but you just can't.
It's one of the most difficult human experiences, honestly, because our fundamental instinct is to fix things. We want to intervene to provide a tangible solution.
You gotta make the pain stop.
Right. But so often these really deep, complex life crises, our natural tools just bounce right off. The money, the logical advice, the perfectly worded text message.
They just aren't enough.
No, they aren't. They don't reach the core of what that person is actually going through.
Which honestly brings us right to the focus of today's deep dive. We are exploring Chapter 8 of Dev Rakhu's book, Armed with Grace, Winning the Spiritual Battles You Never Saw Coming.
It's such a timely chapter, too.
It really is. The mission today is to move way beyond what the author calls vending machine prayers. Those quick transactional requests we typically make for our own comfort.
The God fix this for me right now prayers.
Yeah, exactly. Instead, we're looking at a really profound, often overlooked spiritual weapon called intercession. Basically what it means to stand in the gap for someone else when they simply cannot do it for themselves. So, okay, let's unpack this.
To really understand intercession, I think we first need to separate it from how we normally approach prayer.
Okay, how so?
Well, most of us default to something called petition, which is asking God for our own needs. And to be clear, that is completely biblical and totally necessary.
Right, God wants us to ask for what we need.
Absolutely. But intercession is a different posture entirely. It's the act of bringing another person's need before God. You're literally standing between a person or maybe a family or a whole situation and the throne of God.
Wow, that's a heavy image.
It is. You are carrying someone else with faith and love and perseverance when they are too overwhelmed or unable or sometimes, completely unwilling to pray for themselves.
So you're basically taking on their spiritual burden. You're showing up on their behalf when they can't even get out of bed.
Yes, exactly that. And the author brings in this really haunting piece of imagery from the book of Ezekiel to show just how serious this is. It's Ezekiel 22.30.
Oh, right, the wall metaphor.
Yeah. To give you the historical context really quickly, Ezekiel was prophesying during a time of just immense corruption in Jerusalem. The prophets, the priests, the leaders, the people, they were all acting unjustly.
The whole system was rotten.
Right. And the city was facing imminent destruction. And God uses this metaphor of a city wall because ancient cities relied entirely on their walls for protection, right?
Yeah, if there was a breach, like a gap in the wall, the city was incredibly vulnerable.
Exactly. The enemy would just pour straight through that gap.
So what does God say about it?
Well, in Ezekiel 22.30, God says, I looked for someone among them who would build up the wall and stand before me in the gap on behalf of the land so I would not have to destroy it. But I found no one.
But I found no one. Man, that is the idea of the gap being left wide open because nobody bothered to show up and stand there. It's just heavy.
It's devastating, really.
It is. But it brings up a huge theological question for me.
Yeah.
If God is sovereign and he is all-powerful, why is he actively looking for someone to stand in the gap?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Right. Like, why doesn't he just fix the wall himself? It feels so strange that the creator of the universe is just waiting on a human partner to intervene.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of how God chooses to operate on Earth. It really comes down to this concept of delegated authority.
Delegated authority. Break that down a bit.
Well, in the biblical narrative, God gave humanity dominion over the earth way back in Genesis. He doesn't generally bypass the human agency that he established.
Oh, I see. So he wants to work through us, not just around us.
Exactly. He looks for a human vessel to partner with his divine will. When God wants to bring healing or protection or deliverance into a physical situation, he actually seeks a human intercessor to authorize that intervention through prayer.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, think about Moses in Exodus 32. The people of Israel had built that golden calf, and God was ready to just destroy them. But Moses stepped into the gap.
He advocated for them.
He did. He advocated for a totally rebellious people, appealing to God's compassionate character, and God relented.
That shifts the perspective entirely. It isn't that God is powerless without us, it's that he has chosen this system of partnership. We are invited into the boardroom, so to speak.
I love that phrasing, invited into the boardroom.
Yeah. And, it reminds me of the analogy the author uses earlier in the book, back in chapter 5, about the Roman testudo formation. You remember that? The tortoise shield wall.
Oh, yes. The interlocking shields. That is a perfect visual for this.
It really is. So, for you listening, Roman soldiers would stand side by side, and they would overlap their massive shields to create this impenetrable dome.
Like a literal moving fortress.
Exactly. The guys in front face forward, the sides face outward, and the guys in the middle hold the shields right over their heads. And because of that, arrows just bounce off, spears are deflected.
But it only works if everyone holds their spot.
Right. It only works because no single soldier is carrying the weight of the defense all by himself. Intercession is stepping into that exact formation.
Yeah, it's a shared burden.
Think about it. Imagine your friend is in a brutal fight with grief, or they are just exhausted from battling a terrible illness. Their arms are trembling, their shield is dropping, and they are completely exposed to the arrows of the enemy.
They just have nothing left to give.
Nothing. So intercession is you stepping up beside them and spiritually overlapping your shield over theirs.
You are providing spiritual cover when they have absolutely no strength left. I mean, it shifts prayer from being this isolated, individualistic coping mechanism into a deeply communal, protective action.
You're taking responsibility for the person standing next to you.
Yes, but, holding that shield up sounds really great in theory.
Oh, for sure.
Let's look at the practical reality of it, though. If God is actively looking for people to build up this wall, who actually makes the cut?
That's a great point. Because we tend to think you need, like, a massive public platform or a theology degree, or at least exceptional physical energy to wield that kind of spiritual defense.
We absolutely do. We measure spiritual power by worldly metrics. We look at who is the loudest, or who has the biggest audience, or who can speak the most articulately from a stage.
We assume spiritual authority requires, exceptional human strength.
Which is why the story of Doris in chapter 8 completely upends how we view spiritual influence.
Oh man, Doris's story. I love this part so much. For you listening, let me just paint the picture of Doris for a second. Doris was in her 80s.
Right.
She was wheelchair-bound, and because of her failing physical health, she was mostly homebound. By any worldly standard, she appeared weak.
She was essentially invisible to mainstream society.
Totally invisible.
Yeah.
She couldn't go on mission trips. She couldn't lead a megachurch. She rarely even made it to a Sunday service.
And society, and honestly much of the modern church, would look at someone in Doris's position and just assume her days of active usefulness were long behind her.
It's sad, but it's true.
We tend to sideline the elderly and the chronically ill. We think, well, they can't do the physical work, so they're benched.
But Doris had a completely different battle plan. Every single morning at 4 a.m., Doris would wheel herself into her kitchen, pull up to the table, and open this battered, worn-out notebook.
Just a simple notebook.
Yeah, but inside that notebook were hundreds of names. She had church members, missionaries, neighbors, government leaders.
People she had never even met, right? Just saw them on the local news.
Exactly. And every morning, in the quiet of her kitchen, she systematically prayed for them, day after day, year after year, despite her own body aching and failing her.
She sustained that faith because she understood the unseen mechanics of what she was doing. She knew she was holding that shield.
She really did. And the narrative shifts from this quiet devotion to just staggering impact when we look at the end of her life.
This is the best part.
When Doris passed away at the age of 87, over 400 people attended her funeral.
400 people?
Yes, for a woman who had barely left her apartment in years.
The testimonies at that funeral are just undeniable evidence of the unseen realm interacting with the seen realm.
It gives me chills, like the missionary who stood up.
Yes. He shared how a crucial piece of funding had come through on the exact day, literally the exact morning that Doris had committed to praying for his project.
And what about the young man? He testified that he had been in such a dark place he had actually planned to take his own life.
So heavy.
But he said a sudden, overwhelming sense of peace just stopped him. And it happened on the very morning his name had been written in Doris's notebook.
That is just incredible. And a couple also shared that their marriage was effectively dead, completely falling apart, until Doris began interceding for them daily.
It really makes you rethink everything.
It does. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the analytical takeaway here subverts all our cultural expectations.
How so?
Age, health, physical location, and public visibility do not determine your spiritual usefulness.
Wow. Doris didn't have a platform. She never preached a sermon. But from a kitchen table, she shifted the atmosphere for hundreds of people.
Because intercession is about spiritual authority, not physical ability.
Wow.
Doris wielded her authority with absolute confidence because she knew exactly who she was talking to.
She knew she wasn't alone in it.
Right. The enemy would love nothing more than for believers who are physically limited to believe they are spiritually benched.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it.
Doris proves that quiet, hidden, seemingly invisible prayers have the power to alter families, protect leaders, and affect future generations. She was doing exactly what God was looking for in Ezekiel.
She was the one building the wall.
Exactly. She stood in the gap.
It makes you look at the elderly or the homebound or the chronically ill in a completely different light. They aren't sidelined at all. They could very well be the frontline infantry in this spiritual battle.
They often are, honestly.
But we have to ask why Doris's prayers actually worked. When we stand in the gap, we aren't just, crossing our fingers and hoping positive thoughts change the universe.
Right, it's not manifesting.
No, not at all. The book makes it clear that we are joining a battle that already has a victor.
We never intercede alone. That is the key. The theological bedrock of intercession is found in passages like Romans 8.34 and Hebrews 7.25.
What do those tell us?
These verses state that Jesus Christ, the resurrected Son of God, is at the right hand of God, and he always lives to intercede for us.
Wait, meaning his current present-day activity is intercession?
Yes. He didn't just save humanity and then sit back and say, okay, good luck, everyone.
That is huge.
In the Old Testament, the high priest would wear a breastplate into the Holy of Holies, and inscribed on that breastplate were the names of the tribes of Israel.
So he literally carried their names.
He carried their names right over his heart into the presence of God. Hebrews tells us Jesus is our ultimate high priest. He carries our names.
That's a beautiful image.
Think about Luke 22, before Peter even denies Jesus. Jesus tells him, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you as wheat, but I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail.
Wow. Jesus was standing in the gap for Peter before Peter even knew he was in danger.
Exactly. So when you choose to intercede for a child who has walked away from their faith or a pastor who is burning out, you aren't initiating something on your own.
You are joining in the ongoing ministry of Jesus.
You're stepping in right beside him.
I hear the theology, and, it sounds victorious in a vacuum, but I struggle deeply with the reality on the ground. So what does this all mean when things don't get better?
That's the hard part.
Right.
Yeah.
Joining Jesus sounds triumphant, but what about the parent who has been praying for a child's addiction for 10 years? Or a spouse praying through their partner's deep, suffocating depression, waking up to the same cold silence every single day?
It's exhausting.
It feels less like holding a shield alongside Jesus and more like screaming into a void. How does the book reconcile that sheer emotional exhaustion when the gap just never seems to close and you feel like you're wasting your life waiting?
That is probably the hardest question in the spiritual life, and we have to address it with absolute care because the burnout is very real.
It is. People give up because it just hurts too much to keep asking.
The author offers a lot of pastoral wisdom here by reminding us what intercession is not. It is not a magical formula.
Okay.
It is not a mechanism to control God, and it is certainly not a tool to override the free will of the person you're praying for.
Which is terrifying, honestly.
Why is that terrifying?
Because you can pray perfectly, you can stand in the gap for a decade, and the person can still choose a destructive path.
They can. Love always requires free will, even when it breaks our hearts. And we often equate unanswered or delayed prayer with a lack of faith on our part, or a lack of care on God's part.
We take it so personally, like we didn't pray hard enough.
Right, but God's sovereignty, his compassion, and his timeline operate on a scale we just cannot immediately see. The author uses a phrase that speaks directly to that exhaustion, which I think is so helpful.
What's the phrase?
Waiting is not punishment, it is preparation.
Waiting is not punishment, it is preparation. Man, that is incredibly hard to swallow when you are in year 5 of waiting for a medical breakthrough or a reconciled marriage.
It is brutal. There's no sugarcoating that. But the perseverance itself is forming something within you. You are surrendering the timeline to a sovereign God.
You're giving up control.
Exactly. You are holding the shield even when your arms are trembling, trusting that delayed results do not mean the prayer was wasted. Intercession requires immense endurance.
You don't get to dictate the outcome. You are only responsible for holding the line.
That's it.
It requires a massive amount of trust. And it also requires a reality check on our end, I think.
How do you mean?
Well, because we are talking about unseen spiritual battles and standing in gaps, there's this temptation to spiritualize everything and completely ignore the physical reality right in front of us.
Oh, absolutely. Which is a dangerous trap and one the church has often fallen into.
The author points out that prayer and action have to go together. They are dance partners. I think of it kind of like military combat.
Okay, I like this.
Intercession is calling in close air support. You absolutely need it to soften the target, to clear the spiritual fog, and to change the dynamic of the battlefield.
Right.
But you still have to advance the ground troops. You still have to do the physical work to secure the area.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. Air support and ground troops. Deliverance without discipleship or prayer without practical love is just incomplete.
Praying for a strained marriage doesn't mean you refuse to go to marriage counseling.
Right, go to the counselor.
Exactly. Praying against the spirit of depression doesn't mean you throw away your medication or cancel your therapy appointments in the name of faith.
God uses those tools too.
He does.
Yeah.
Interceding for a friend who is grieving doesn't replace bringing them a meal or sitting down for a hard, honest conversation.
You don't abandon the physical reality just because you are engaged in a spiritual battle. You bring the power of heaven into the practical messiness of earth.
It's both and, not either or.
Exactly. You pray and then you act on the wisdom God gives you. You act and you pray for God's blessing on that action. A lot of people hide behind intercession because it's honestly easier to pray for someone in the quiet of your room than it is to have a difficult confrontation with them in person.
Wow, that is so true. It's safer to just pray.
It is, but intercession should empower your action, not replace it.
It's a total paradigm shift. It makes you realize that the quietest, most hidden moments of our day could be the very thing shifting the atmosphere in someone else's life, even if we still have to do the heavy lifting in the physical world.
And for you listening, we really want to remind you that you may never fully know, at least on this side of eternity, how God has used your faithful prayers to protect the people you love.
You might not see a dramatic, movie-ending resolution.
Right. You might not get a funeral with 400 people detailing your miracles like Doris did. You might just see small, really slow shifts over decades. Or, honestly, you might see nothing at all until heaven.
But those prayers matter. They are stones thrown into the spiritual realm, and heaven hears every single one.
Absolutely.
So we want to leave you with a practical application today. Drawing straight from the book, it's a gentle, very doable challenge.
I love this challenge.
Today, write down the name of one struggling person in your life. Just one. Pray for them by name, consistently, for the next 7 days.
Stand in the gap for them.
Stand in the gap. Anchor that prayer in one specific piece of scripture, like asking God to give them peace or clarity. And then ask yourself if a loving action should accompany that prayer. The ground troops. Send them a text message simply saying, "I prayed for you this morning," or, drop off a coffee.
Pair the spiritual air support with the physical ground troops. Then step back and trust God with the outcome.
Don't demand immediate visible change.
Just hold the shield over them, let them know they are loved, and let God do the heavy lifting. And if this approach to prayer resonates with you, I warmly invite you to continue reading Armed with Grace by Dev Raghu.
We've only scratched the surface of Chapter 8 today.
We really have. The book offers such deep biblical teaching, profound encouragement, and practical steps for your spiritual growth.
Now, as we close, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own. We started by talking about the pain of watching someone else struggle and feeling powerless to help them.
But let's flip the script for a second.
Yeah, think about your own life. Think about the inexplicable protections, the narrow misses, the sudden breakthrough moments you've experienced when you were at your absolute lowest.
The moments when the fog just inexplicably lifted or the provision arrived right on time, seemingly out of nowhere.
Whose hidden, silent prayers from years ago might you be walking in the answers to right now?
That is a profound thought.
Somewhere, maybe a grandmother, a quiet neighbor, or someone like Doris who you never even met, saw you struggling and decided to build up the wall.
I stood in the gap for you.
They did. They overlapped their shield over yours when you were entirely powerless to do it yourself. You are armed today because someone else fought for you yesterday.
It's a humbling realization. We are all beneficiaries of someone else's intercession.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep standing in the gap.